Hi, and welcome to Your Health Transformed. I'm Dr. Hamilton, and I'm super excited to talk about anti-cancerization today, if that's even a word, with Dr. Dominic Brandy, who's been studying this forever and has helped so many patients fight back cancer and has books and all kinds of things. So we are going to talk to him today about how, in the event you do not have cancer, you can prevent it. And then he has all types of resources for those of you who may be suffering or have a family member who has cancer, and things that you can do to kind of fight back against that. So thank you so much, Dr. Dominic, for being on the show.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here. So I guess you had cancer. So from what I understand, what made you kind of jump into this, so to speak, and help others with this?
Well, a little bit of my backstory is kind of interesting. My background is I had a plastic surgery, med spa anti-aging center for over 40 years. 3 years ago, I sold it to a venture capital group. And at that point, we were ranked the fifth largest med spa anti-aging center in the United States through Allergan, the company that makes Botox.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So 5 years ago is really when my cancer journey started. And my story really starts 2 months before that, because a lot of people think I started eating whole food plant-based because I got cancer and I wanted to figure something out to do to enhance my chances of getting into remission and staying there. Yeah. But 2 months before I got diagnosed, my wife and I went on a 2-week biking cruise. And I've read well over 300 books on health and nutrition in my career because I had this anti-aging center. It's always been a passion of mine. So when I go on vacation, I always read a health and nutrition book. So I went on Kindle, and there was a book called How Not to Die by Michael Greger. And I would advise everyone to read that book.
Wow.
Because for me, it was life-changing. If you get the hardback, it is literally about 2 inches thick, and about 1 inch of it are scientific references. And that was the thing as a medical doctor that really intrigued me. As I was reading the book, the science was just showing over and over that cultures and research cohorts that ate more plant-based had a much lower incidence of cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes,
all the stuff, all the chronic diseases,
metabolic
diabetes,
disease,
obesity,
you name it, and all cause mortality. So I'm 2 days into this cruise, and I tell my wife I'm going whole food plant-based. She thought I was out of my mind. So, where's all this meat and dairy and eggs and everything else?
All you can eat,
And I'm one of these people, when I make a decision, I just go at it.
Yeah.
So from that point, I have been eating whole food plant-based. Now, when I got back, it was kind of weird. It was the last week of September, and I was doing a plastic surgery case, and I felt a little pop in my clavicle, and I didn't know what was going on. Then it was just getting worse and worse. I thought it was maybe a tendonitis. I didn't know exactly what was going on, but it kept getting worse to the point where the last week of October, I remember very clearly, it was starting to keep me up at night. And I told my wife, Trina, I said, Trina, I think I have bone cancer. And she said, oh, you're the healthiest person I know. You're fine. I just kind of shrugged it off. But a week after that, we were watching television, and I accidentally knocked over a container of water. And when I lunged for it, my collarbone just cracked right in half.
Oh my gosh.
And we went to the urgent care center. I mean, I was in severe pain, couldn't even lift up my arm, got an MRI. There was a plasmacytoma there. They biopsied it, did a bunch of lab tests, and they found out I had this IgA kappa multiple myeloma, which, for your listeners, that's a blood cancer of the plasma cells. So they're the cells that make your antibodies. So when I went to my oncologist,
cancer doctor,
I had this IgA form. So there's IgA, IgG, IgM. IgA is the most aggressive. My doctor wanted to put me on this triple regimen of 2 oral medications. And then there was a medication called Velcade, where I would have to go every week for a shot. And the reading I was doing, like 90% of people get a peripheral neuropathy with this. And being a surgeon, I was concerned about that. And I was telling him, I really don't think I want to do that. He pulled me into a side room. There was another patient there who'd had Velcade. He was trying to talk him into
convince you. Yeah, exactly.
But he didn't convince me. In fact, that guy's a good friend of mine. We go out to lunch all the time now. It's kind of weird. But so then I came back, and remember, I had already been eating whole food plant-based for 2 months.
Correct. You've already started.
And I felt positive that it was definitely going to help me in this fight. So I told my doctor, I said, listen, I'll do everything, but I'm not doing that Velcade. And so he was upset. He didn't think I was going to get into a remission, but it was weird. Every month, my numbers just kept getting dramatically better. I would post it on my personal Facebook page. And by 6 months, I was in a complete remission, and I've stayed ever since. And the two medications that I take, I still have to take it because myeloma is an incurable disease. And one thing that I do not recommend people that have cancer just trying to do it all naturally. I mean, there are billions of cancer cells. And if you think food alone is going to solely kill those, you're in another planet. You really need to do the best of conventional, and you need to do the best of natural things that you can do. But so I still take, it's called Revlimid and dexamethasone, but I take very, very low doses. I do it 21 days each month. And I have been able to stay in a complete remission. I really don't have any side effects. I live a very high energy life. And a lot of it really does have to do with all of the different things that I mentioned in my book. I have basically 5 precepts in my book, Beat Back Cancer Naturally. And the 5 precepts really are a whole food plant-based diet for people that have cancer. Now, if someone is just trying to prevent it, I tell people, listen, if you want to eat meat or dairy, you can do it, but don't make that the predominant part of your diet. If you look at the blue zone areas of the world where people live the longest.
Correct. Exactly.
Icaria, Greece, Sardinia, Okinawa, Nicoya, Costa Rica, and Loma Linda, which is in the United States. I think that probably gives you the best perspective because they are living our culture. People in the blue zones eat about a 90 to 95% plant-based diet, all of them. Beans are their primary protein source. Most of them on average eat about 70 grams of protein per day. But in Loma Linda, for example, women live about 10 years longer than their American counterparts, and men live about 14 years longer.
Wow, that's shocking.
And really, a lot of it is that plant foods have these incredible phytonutrients. We know there's over 100,000 phytonutrients. I listened to a podcast interview with Ted Fahey. He's one of the premier experts on phytonutrients. He actually feels there's over 5 million phytonutrients in plant foods. And one thing I think is missing in the diet of some of these people that are going carnivore and heavy keto and so forth is I really think they're not getting any acute deficiencies because we've kind of licked that problem. People don't get scurvy anymore, beriberi, pellagra, because everything's fortified. Even Doritos probably have vitamin C.
Enriched or fortified. Exactly.
Yeah, it's enriched. But I think a lot of people down the road are going to have some major issues because they have phytonutrient deficiencies.
Correct.
That are going to show up, their latent deficiencies. They're going to show up 10, 20 years down the road. So I always tell cancer patients, listen, to get cancer, you already have thousands of mutations. Dr. Mikhail Munchke, he wrote a really good article in the journal Nature, and he's a myeloma expert. And he calculated through his research that by the time you get multiple myeloma, the cancer that I have, you have up to 5,000 DNA mutations in that cancer cell. And by the time you relapse, you're up to 12,000. And I really think a lot of those DNA mutations come from the cancer treatments. I think the chemo themselves create a lot of free radical damage and inflammation. And I actually think and a lot of times they create more DNA mutations, which increase your chances of getting a relapse. So plant foods have 63 times the antioxidant power compared to animal products. So when you're trying to prevent DNA mutations, antioxidants are really one of the most powerful ways to do that, because they neutralize the free radicals that are formed just through our habits. Smoking, for example, is probably one of the greatest free radical producers. I read an article one time that one puff of a cigarette creates 8 hours of free radical activity.
Oh my gosh.
So anybody that has cancer, they should definitely do that. They should also really cut down, I think, totally eliminate alcohol. I mean, there have been several studies that show even with women that drink 3 drinks a week, they have about a 15 greater % chance of getting breast cancer. And then for every drink over that, it's an extra 10%. And there was a large article in the International Journal of Cancer. They looked at like 79,000 cancers, 1.2 million participants. And they found that alcohol, even moderate alcohol consumption, increased the risk of just about every kind of cancer. I mean, every kind of cancer you can think.
They say red wine apparently is good for anti-inflammatory.
I don't, if
you don't buy that.
If somebody wants to drink, a glass a day, they can do that. But alcohol is a definite toxin. It's definitely a poison. And if somebody has cancer, when I do my lifestyle counseling for these patients, I tell them to definitely eliminate it if they can. I remember I had one patient, she had ovarian cancer and she was in remission. She said, "You mean I have to give up my wine and cheese?" I said, "You do whatever you want. I'm just showing you the science. I'm not going to follow you around." But, people have to make their own choices. All I do is I present studies, a lot of studies to patients, and I just kind of give them the recommendations that I find through the research, because, every morning I spend about an hour or two just delving into the scientific literature, just trying to find any kind of herb, any kind of supplement that can help people in this battle. So the second thing the second precept in my book are targeted supplements. I personally take over 30 supplements a day. Most people aren't going to do that. But they're all heavily researched. They're things like astragalus, berberine, garlic, ginger, noni fruit, mangosteen. A lot of these things people never even heard of, neem. But what I do when I do my lifestyle counseling for these patients is I write them a long letter the following day. And then I have a supplement list, and I put 3 asterisks next to the ones that I think are the most important. Then I put 2 asterisks on the ones that I think are less important, then 1 on the ones that are least important. And then I let them pick. And everything that I recommend, they can get on Amazon. I do not hawk any supplements or anything like that, which I think gives me more credibility. It's not like I'm trying to sell you something. And I go on to cancerization.com. If anybody ever has a supplement and they're not sure of the quality, if you go onto that website, it's called cancerization.com. They basically go through a lot of the supplements, and it's crazy how some of these supplements hardly even have any of the ingredient.
Exactly, they're all filler.
like I like to use high quality extra virgin olive oil, and I was using one called Carapelli, and I thought it was really good. And then I went on Consumer Lab, and 25% of it is rancid. So I got rid of that, and I found Lucchini was their top pick. They had the highest quality and so forth. There was one olive oil didn't even have olives in it, which it kind of blew my mind. So that's a good resource for people to go on.
That's good. Consumerlab.com. Thank you.
Right. And one thing about supplements, I am not a big proponent of individual vitamins. Like everything that I do is pretty much herbal, because
I was going to ask you that, because I feel like some of the stuff that you mentioned, like garlic, turmeric, ginger, like those are herbs that you can just eat, either put those in your food, right? Or you can.
Absolutely. You can do that. In fact, my wife and I, we try to eat in a typical week. We try to eat 30 different plant foods, and with herbs and spices, 40. I'm sure because you're into bariatric surgery, you're familiar with all the new research in the gut microbiome.
Yeah, of course.
And the American Gut Project is a really interesting project. Robert Knight is the microbiome researcher. He's one of the most prominent in the United States. And what they found, and what people do is they send in their stool, they analyze their microbiome based on these questionnaires that they do. I think it's $100. You can send it in and get it analyzed. And what they found is people that eat 30 different plant foods in the course of a week compared to people that only eat 10 different plant foods in the course of a week. The ones that have the 30 have a much more diverse microbiome. They have a predominance of the good Prevotella bacteria with their 500 subspecies, and they have a low concentration of the Bacteroidetes and all the
bad ones.
500 and one of the things that I think your listeners would be interested in because of obesity, I don't know if you're familiar with those fecal transplant studies where they've actually taken identical twins. One's obese and one is thin, and they do a fecal transplant into mice. So when you take the fat stool from the fat identical twin and you transplant it into a thin rodent like a mouse, that mouse gets fat. And then if you take the lean stool and you put it into the fat mouse, it gets thin. And they've done that experiment hundreds of times, and it always comes out the same way. So the microbiome with its 39 trillion bacteria really have a lot to do with your metabolism. They release like GLP-1, PYY, leptin, which keeps your appetite down. It controls your ghrelin, which makes you. It controls your appetite. Kind of makes you full. And and then the other thing about the
and how you break down, by the way, and absorb nutrients, right? So if you have a lot of bad bacteria, doesn't matter what you eat, you're not going to be able to get the nutrients because you can't break all down that food. I just wanted to add that in there too. So
right. So the fiber goes down into the colon, and your small intestine can't metabolize the fiber, so it goes down there, and it forms these amazingly anti-inflammatory short chain fatty acids, butyrate, propionate, and acetate, and these are the most anti-inflammatory chemicals I have ever witnessed in my life. I mean, so they're released into your body and they create all this anti-inflammation. I think most of us know that chronic inflammation is one of the major reasons of chronic disease. But one of the things I just learned that kind of blew my mind is that 90% of your serotonin comes from your gut bacteria.
It's from your gut. All these mood disorders.
And 50% of your dopamine comes from these gut bacteria. And they control, and this is the most mind-blowing part of it, especially for cancer patients, because they always have wondered, why do people that eat more plant-based, why do they have all these health benefits? And I think one of the main reasons is that when you eat more plant-based, you are increasing the good Prevotella bacteria and you're decreasing the bad Bacteroidetes. But these bacteria send signals across that one layer of intestinal cells in the colon, and they basically tell all the immune cells what to do, where to go, where to fight. I mean, it's almost
the majority of your immune system is in your gut.
They say 70-80% of your immune system is in your gut, and it's just it's kind of an area that I have kind of focused a lot of my research on lately, because I just find it like unbelievably fascinating. I read one study that, the difference between me and you is 0.01% in our genetic makeup.
Yeah,
like we're
yes.
we're 99.9%.
We're genetically very similar.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But our microbiome could be the DNA in our microbiome could be 90% different between me and you, depending on what we eat.
Correct.
So it's kind of like mind blowing when you think of it. And I read one study that actually 99% of our DNA in our bodies are actually in our gut when you take away red cells and platelets because they don't have a nucleus. I mean, it's
amazing.
Really, the body is unbelievable how these microbes really control our health. So getting back to the supplements, as I was talking about, one of the reasons I don't like, an individual like beta carotene, supplement, taking a vitamin C supplement, is because it's very unnatural. For people that kind of understand the whole idea of a free radical, free radicals are formed in the trillions every day. Every
exposure, natural process to form.
Just through metabolism, just through the different thing. Too much, radiation. If you eat too much fried food, if you smoke, you're gonna create sometimes an excess of free radicals, and your body obviously wants to negate that free radical activity that's going on in your body. So when vitamin C, when it contributes an electron, so a free radical is a molecule with an unpaired electron that's released in these metabolic processes that go on, for instance, in the mitochondria. So when vitamin C comes in, it actually contributes an electron, right? Because that's how it quelches a free radical.
Yeah.
But vitamin C is missing an electron now.
Because it just donated one.
It just let go one. Now it's missing an electron.
Yeah.
So the thing I like about food is that God put all these phytonutrients together. For instance, an apple has over 1,000 phytonutrients. So when you eat that apple, all these antioxidants are kind of working together. So when the vitamin C contributes one, maybe there's a vitamin E that's kind of recycling. There you go. And there's just all this recycling going on. So I really, in some of the studies, you're probably familiar with some of them, beta carotene supplements and lung cancer, it caused more problems. Synthetic vitamin E alone, like the calciferol, actually increased the rate of cancer. So I really like to use more herbal supplements because they're foods, and all that cycling of these antioxidants is occurring naturally the way that God meant them to do. And also, they act synergistically. For instance, turmeric, that is the one supplement I think everyone should take, even if you don't have cancer. I just think turmeric is one of the most amazing.
So many things. Yeah.
Well, if you go in the literature, there's over 12,000 studies on turmeric.
There's a lot. Yeah.
It's mind blowing. So it has unbelievable anti-inflammatory effects. But if you follow its anti-cancer activities, I mean, it basically has anti-cancer activities.
It does. There's been studies showing it's treated certain cancers. Turmeric.
There's one study in regard to my cancer. It was done by Golombek and the group in Australia. And for those of you that don't know about my cancer, multiple myeloma, it starts with, it's called MGUS. And MGUS progresses to smoldering myeloma, and then smoldering myeloma progresses to myeloma. Now, I probably had MGUS like 20 years ago. I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
One thing I did notice, like when I think back, my creatinine levels were going up a wee little bit, and I didn't know why, and my platelet levels were coming down. But I felt normal, and they were still normal, but they were changing a little bit. I really didn't know what was going on. But MGUS is a really good entity to study cancer progression. So what Golombek did is she put half the group on turmeric, 4 grams in the morning, 4 grams at night. So it was 8 grams per day with a black pepper extract. Bioprine should always be given with turmeric, and it should also always be taken with fat. I always take my turmeric with fish oil because there are fat soluble phytonutrients in there that you really do need for proper absorption. But she put half of the group on 8 grams and the other graph was just placebo. And what she found was the biomarkers, the M spike, for example, came down about 33% in the people that were taking turmeric. The free light chains came down, the bone reabsorption markers came down. And she actually did the study twice, and both times it came out the same way. So, wow. And there was actually one study in one of the British journals where this woman went through hell. She had stem cell transplant. I mean, she went through the whole thing with multiple myeloma. And she finally got to the point, she goes, you know what, I'm done with all this. So she went on just turmeric. She did 8 grams every day with the piperine.
Yeah.
She went into a complete, actually a cure. This was in 2017. Wow. That's just a case study.
Yeah. Just a one case.
It was kind of interesting. Everybody talks about her. The one that she used, it was Doctor's Best. You can get it on Amazon. Okay, yep. You know, that's the product she used. But turmeric is really the one supplement. When people tell me, hey, if I could only take one supplement, that's all I want to take. I said, well, take turmeric.
Yeah.
One thing that's interesting about turmeric, and it gets back to that whole thing of synergy of these phytonutrients. There was an interesting study where they compared curcumin with just turmeric, the root. And turmeric, for your listeners, has a lot of different phytonutrients. It has turmerone, zingerone, so there's a lot of these other phytonutrients in there. So it was a lab study, and they applied the turmeric extract on, it was 5 different cancers. And then the one that then just plain curcumin on the 5 different cancers. And the turmeric was much, much more powerful than just the curcumin. So when I recommend turmeric supplements, I always look for ones that are primarily the root. If I see it says 95% standardized for curcumin, I don't recommend those. That. I don't take it. I always take, and you know what? The ones that are just turmeric, they're always cheaper too. I use one from Carlisle is the brand. You can get it on Amazon. That's the one I recommend my patients. But I take 4 of those in the morning, 4 at night. Each capsule has 1 gram of turmeric in it. But that's a good example how these phytonutrients work synergistically. There's one really good study that they did, and there's a good lecture. There's actually 2 lectures. There's a Zoom lecture, and then there's one I gave at a vegan expo on the synergy of phytonutrients. But one of the studies, they took a grape extract and an onion extract, and they applied it onto breast cancer cells. The grape extract killed about 25% of the breast cancer cells. The onion extract killed about 50%. Oh, then wow. They took a half and half solution. So you figured it would kill maybe like 35%.
Yeah, correct.
No, it killed 75%. So
it was additive.
Yeah, there was a synergistic effect.
Yeah, that's great.
And then there's another study that I show in my lecture where this was against prostate cancer cells, and it was basically turmeric, lycopene, and then vitamin E, which vitamin E actually had a negative effect. The higher the bar, the more anti-cancer activity. So the turmeric and the lycopene had a positive effect, but it was small, and then the vitamin E actually had a negative effect. But when they put them all 3 together, the bar went up about 10 times the height. It was like unbelievable how these phytonutrients actually work synergistically.
Yeah.
And that's why trying to get them in foods and herbs is really the best way, because you get all these phytonutrients working together, and you get a much more powerful effect when you get this synergy going on. It's even like before I take my nuts, people think I'm crazy, but I always take nuts have amazing anti-cancer and life extending properties. But one of the reasons I always take them before I take my supplements is to get the fat soluble vitamins and minerals absorbed. But the way that I do it, instead of taking like a handful of walnuts, I do 2 walnuts, I do 2 pecans, I do 2 almonds, a couple hazelnuts.
Different ones.
I do about 12 different nuts, but in little amounts. But the reason I do that is because I want to get a synergistic effect of what's going on.
Yeah.
My wife thinks I'm crazy, but I know that when you do that, you're really, getting like a very, very potent synergistic effect.
Yeah.
One other thing I did want to mention to your listeners, that I think is really powerful. I'm really big into freeze-dried powders.
I just learned about those not too long ago for antioxidant effects.
Oh, it's unbelievable. You can get them all on Amazon.
Okay.
I actually put 12 of them in my coffee in the morning. Believe it or not, I have a 24-ounce cup of coffee. It's made by EO. You can get that on Amazon. So I put cacao, blackberry, blueberry, raspberry, strawberry, acai, grape skin. I put a lot of cacao to give it a hot chocolate taste.
Yeah.
There's goji powder in there, pomegranate powder. And then I put a couple little shakes of clove, and then I put a lot of cinnamon, because cinnamon has some amazing anti-cancer activity. So I put them in, and I also put a little pinch of baking powder. I always put baking powder in my coffee because coffee is very acidic, and I try to keep my patients alkaline, leaning alkaline. So I have an alkaline chart actually in my book. It has the most alkaline foods on the left and the most acidic foods on the right. But I use a Keurig. I use a light roast organic that I get from Costco. That's an amazing coffee, and you get a lot of it for really cheap. I put it in my Keurig. I put all those powders in there. I add it in. That takes me up to about 12 ounces. Then I add a cup of soy milk.
Yeah.
And I do my studying in the morning, all my computer work. So I'm sipping that. When I get about halfway, then I add another cup of soy milk, and then I kind of stir. It is a little thick, so you do have to kind of stir it as you're drinking it. But I calculated the other day, just when I finished that drink, I get 27 grams of protein and 12 grams of fiber just doing that.
Oh, wow. That's great.
I mean, it's unbelievable. But one thing people don't know about freeze-dried powders is that 1 gram of blueberry powder, for example, is like eating 50 grams of blueberries. So you get this like amazingly concentrated phytonutrient punch.
Yeah.
And in my book, in the chapter on plants, I go over all the different ways that phytonutrients kill cancer cells. I mean, they actually cause cancer cell suicide. They fragment the DNA. They disrupt cell signaling between the cancer cells. They disrupt the cell replication phases during cancer. They have an inhibitory effect on angiogenesis, which is the development of blood vessels, supply, which they need.
Cancer.
Right. Right. They enhance the tumor suppressor genes. They inhibit these tumor growth factors. So, it's unbelievable what they do. So in the morning, I'm kind of in a fasted state, and I do that intermittent fasting. I eat my last meal at 8, and I don't eat till noon.
Yeah.
But I consider that drink that I'm doing, I'm still in my fast. But you're probably aware of some of the studies with intermittent fasting, how it can have a positive effect on how much you actually eat calorically. And people seem to lose weight that way. But the reason I mainly do it is studies are showing that when you do intermittent fasting, it does have a positive effect on cancer. There's one study, it was one of the first ones that was ever done on breast cancer, and they looked at individuals that had breast cancer, and 13 hours was kind of what they use as their cutoff. So people that fasted more than 13 hours and people that fasted less than 13 hours. And people that fasted more than 13 hours had a 36% lower breast cancer relapse rate.
Oh, wow.
So, and I think the reason for that, I think when you're fasting, it's giving your body a chance to repair a lot of the damage, the DNA damage. There's autophagy going on where it's cleaning up a lot of the misfolded proteins.
Yeah.
So you're giving your body a chance to really restore itself. So that's why I do it. But I don't know if you've ever interviewed Walter Longo. You really should try to get him on your show. He's one of the world's experts on fasting.
Prolon. I've spoken to him multiple times. At other events, but
I actually use Prolon. I do some weight loss counseling too, and I get him started on prolon. But he's doing studies. He started with rodent studies, and he showed that people that had cancer, if they first, these rodents, they fasted them 24 hours before they got the chemo, and then they fasted them another 24 hours after the chemo, and they found that the chemotherapy worked much better when they were in a fasted state.
Yeah.
And then he took it to clinical trials with humans, and he's finding the same thing.
Yeah.
I tell, right now I'm counseling a couple of people who have pancreatic cancer, one has mesothelioma, and I tell them, hey, why don't you just try to caloric restrict maybe 24 hours before and then 24 hours after. What they found is these people have less GI symptoms afterward, less nausea. And the graphs, I have some of the graphs actually on my Instagram site, Cancer Veggie Doc, where I show, I mean, it's really dramatic, the difference between when you fast and get chemo and when you just get the chemo. I mean, it's very, very impressive. So when I'm doing that drink in the morning, I'm kind of like, the way I'm looking at it is I'm actually drinking chemo because it has this amazingly concentrated phytonutrient concentration. And I'm pretty much in a fasted state. One study that really blew my mind about freeze-dried powders, you're probably familiar with esophageal cancer. It's the second most deadly cancer next to pancreatic cancer. Where this was a study. This was an Asian study, and they put these people with early esophageal cancer on a quarter cup of freeze-dried strawberry powder for 6 months every day. And they did endoscopy beforehand. They took photographs of the cancers. After 6 months, 80.6% of them had some reversal of the esophageal cancer, and 50% had complete elimination. And it's all shown with photography. I mean, it's clear as day. But like 50% of them, you can see the cancer, and then it's completely gone. So these powders have amazing power, and I really try to get people. You don't have to do it in your coffee if you want to.
Correct. You can put it in different things.
Yeah, you can put it in your smoothie. You can.
Smoothie.
I don't think most people are going to put 12 in their coffee like tea.
Yeah.
But I actually look forward to that in the morning. It's kind of weird because it really tastes amazing. I put.
That's great. That was going to be my other question. Does it actually taste good?
Oh, it tastes like hot chocolate.
That's great.
I put a little stevia in there too, but it's the way that I make it. The cacao powder, which in itself has some amazing anti-cancer activities. I put about a tablespoon of that in there, so that's what gives the main kind of flavor.
Yeah, chocolate. Yeah.
But soy milk, for those of you that have never tried it, it's extremely creamy, and soy milk is super healthy for you. I use Silk. Once again, I went on Consumer Lab. I wanted to find which one was the best, and Silk came out as their top pick.
Oh, wow. And that's a common brand. Yeah, it's great.
And the more I looked at it, that one has the most fiber. There's in 1 cup, there's actually 2 grams of fiber, and there's 8 grams of protein. So soy milk is an amazing plant milk, and it doesn't have a lot of the bad emulsifiers that some of the other ones have, because those emulsifiers can have a negative effect on your gut.
In the gums.
So Silk was the one that was their top pick. So that's what I've been using, and always get the unsweetened. You don't want to get all those sugars in there and so forth.
Exactly.
So that's what I use. And then after that, when I'm getting ready, I do another concoction of 5 different teas. I know this sounds really, but once again, every one of these I've done heavy research on, and they all have very potent anti-cancer activities. I use it's a combination of chamomile, dandelion, hibiscus, green tea, and red clover. And then I put a little Ceylon cinnamon stick in there, and then I add organic lemon juice and organic lime juice. And then I basically, as I'm getting ready in the morning, I kind of sip that. Once again, the reason I'm adding those 5 different teas together is I'm getting this synergistic
effect. Exactly.
So when you're fighting cancer, and what I tell my patients is this: hey, listen, you have a formidable disease in there that's trying to put you down. So you really have to be in battle every day.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree.
I think about my cancer every day, not in a negative way, but I think of it like, hey, you know what? I'm in battle. Like, I can't be like you drinking alcohol and doing bad things. I exercise every single day.
Just being healthy and trying to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Maximize your health. Well, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing all of this great information. It was so helpful. They can find your book, Beat Back Cancer Naturally, on Amazon.
Yeah, they can get it on Amazon, or they can go to my website, naturalinsightsintocancer.com. When you order on my website, I do give you a signed copy, or you can just get it on Amazon. On Amazon, you can get it in Audible, Kindle, hardback, or soft paperback. You can get it all 4 ways. If you like to listen, you can get it on Audible. And then my Instagram site is Cancer Veggie Doc. I do a post every day with some interesting posts on various topics.
And we'll put that in our notes. Thank you so much.
Oh, hey, it was a blast. Hey, the last 3 precepts, just so your listeners know, are exercise, stress reduction, sleep. So they're the other 3 that I go over in the book in detail.
Perfect. We're on the same page on that one then.
Oh, yeah. And exercise, I always say, if it was in a pill, everybody in the world would be taking it.
Exactly.